that fateful day, the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. Without warning or the slightest provocation, they unleashed upon their innocent neighbor the full terror and fury of a devastating blitzkrieg. There was no stopping this ravaging horde. And when negotiations for surrender had already been concluded, Rotterdam Center was blown to bits, systematically, completely, shamelessly. Bewildered and resentful, the population gathered to read the first proclamations of their treacherous conqueror.
Elizabeth, in January 1943, a young Jewish girl came to live with your family. You weren't born yet,
no.
But just before you were born, she came to live with your family in
That's
the
right.
Netherlands.
Yes.
Tell us about her. Who was she? How did she come to be there? What's her story?
Well, her name was Yvonne and she was 14 years old. And she lived with her parents and an older sister in Nijmegen, one of the oldest cities in the Netherlands. But when the Germans arrived, she had to wear her star. And then they were not allowed to schools anymore. They were not allowed to go to parks anymore, not going to the swimming pool. A lot of public areas was forbidden for them. And then came the Germans came, they confiscated their house and their business. And so it became a brothel for German soldiers, the bakery. But the mother all the time said, we have to leave the country. It becomes too dangerous here. And she tried to organize people who helped them to escape. They had to hand over the money to the people smuggler, and sometimes he turned up and sometimes he didn't turn up, very unreliable. And then they came close to where they to cross the border, and he said, very soon we cross it, don't walk too close to me. I come around the corner, I come back and I give you a sign that you can come through. Well, he went, but he never came back and disappeared with all the money. So they were in the middle of occupied France. So a lot of soldiers, German soldiers around them, and so they were absolutely devastated. Yvonne's father, the baker, went to my grandfather because they know each other and from church. Because the baker delivered a lot of goodies for Easter and Christmas for the big church activities. And my grandfather said, Levitas, that was his name, if something happened, you need help, you always can come and knock on my door. So they came in the beginning of, I think, the 12th of January 1943 and knocked on my grandparents' door. But the whole family was very traumatized by all the traveling in France as well. And so my grandfather said it would be better if Yvonne would go to my parents down south, another part of the country. And 2 days later, Yvonne went with an older lady on the train, and she came to my parents and hiding with my parents on the 14th of January, 43.
Wow, and Yvonne never saw her parents again after that?
Yes, and she never saw her parents again. The sad thing is, when Yvonne also traumatized by what happened to her, and there was a big stairs in the building. I know that because I've been there often as a child. And so when that lady came to pick Yvonne up, she ran down the stairs and disappeared. Didn't say goodbye to her parents, didn't wave anything, and that picture has haunted her the rest of her life because she never saw her parents again.
And so she came to live with your parents. Your
yes.
mother was pregnant with you.
Yeah, I was born in May, a premature baby, very small. I was there, but I was too small to remember anything of it. But Yvonne told her myself, looking after me, that kept her sane.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Yvonne's life was like with your family?
was very, very isolated for her. But my father, not knowing what was going to happen, he made a kind of a hiding place under the living areas, and so then the lino went over the wooden floor, the lino, and then the carpet, and a big lazy boy chair or whatever goes on top of it, so nothing happened. And no one was supposed to know there was someone in there, so she only was allowed to whisper. And no laughing, no talking, and no flushing the toilet, especially when my parents were not at home. And yeah.
Wow. Quite a constrained life.
Yes, yeah.
And at one point in your book, you say she felt like she was in prison.
She felt like in prison, but in prison, you know, when your time is up, you can leave. But she didn't know how long she had to be there. Yes. Yeah.
And so she ended up living with your family for how long?
But that part of the country was liberated in September 1944. So that was, say, a year and a half when she was in hiding. But at the end, they had to be evacuated as well, because at one side of the street were the Germans and the other side of the street were the Americans. And so they got notice to leave within 30 minutes, evacuated like Yvonne. She had no voice because she wasn't allowed to talk. And then my mother, highly pregnant with my brother, because he was born at the end of September, they had 30 minutes to pack all the necessary things and just walk. And a lot of people were killed when they were evacuated, going to a windmill about 3 hours walk away, like there were still grenades falling and things like that, but they made it safe over there. And I was there too, but I was too small.
16 months or so.
Yes, I don't know anything about it, only from what they've told me.
So your mother, pregnant with your brother, Yvonne, probably carrying you, and your dad.
I think my dad was at work, yes, and I think they went with a bike, and I think probably with a pram with all the baby things in it, so I might have sit on the bike, I don't know,
But God kept you safe until you could connect with your father at the windmill. And your grandfather as well was arrested at one point because it became known that he was harboring Yvonne's parents. Tell us a little bit about his story of faith and steadfastness.
So my grandfather, they wanted really my uncle. So my grandfather said, no, don't take my son, take me. You can shoot me, but don't take my son. And they took my grandfather instead of my uncle, yes. And when he was in his cell, it was very cold winter time, and he started to sing to encourage himself, psalms and hymns. And then other soldiers of other prisoners started to join singing as well. So they really encouraged one another. And so then he went to be interrogated, and he felt like he had nothing to lose, because he felt he probably would be shot by hiding Jewish people. And then he said, you don't know what you were doing. You were touching the apple of God's eye, and your punishment will be severe when you continue to do so. I don't know how it exactly happened, but he was not shot and he was sent home. That was a miracle, yes. I'm still, at the moment, reading a lot of things about my grandfather had written in a book as well, and so I'm still reading his stories as well, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the impact, the ongoing impact of what your parents did, what your grandparents did? How has that affected the next generation?
I think that is the big thing. It needs to affect the next generation. They have to know and to hear that it really happened, because there's so many people in denial, or they said, oh, it was not that bad, but it was that bad. And I think that we have to educate the young people so much more what is going on and what was the cause of it all, and that not enough people were standing up. I think that is the secret as well. We have to stand up and not stand by. That's why I found that education is important, but having a life story, what happened, it's like it's solidated. That makes it real. It really happens, and we have to make a stand and stand up. And say, when you see injustice done, not only for the Jewish people, anywhere you see an injustice done, you stand up. You have to stand up. You cannot live with yourself if you don't stand up. That's me.
What's your sense of the strong connection between Christians and the Jewish people?
Well, without the Jewish people, without the Old Testament, we would not be there. Because after all, Jesus was a Jew. And so there is no New Testament without the Old Testament, and they are so interwoven and so connected. And what is written in the Old Testament, you can recover in the New Testament. So it's alive, and God hasn't changed a bit. What he did in the Old Testament, he hasn't changed. He is still the same, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Forget about politics. Throw that out, because that will stop you seeing at what is really happening. And so read your Bible. Read your Bible.
So inspiring that you want to keep that reminder, keep that memory alive.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your work here in Wellington's Holocaust Center. How did you come to volunteer there, and why do you do it?
I think it all came together when I visited the Holocaust Center as a group of Christians, Bible study group. I went a week ahead before because I wanted to tell more about what my parents and grandparents had done. And I was so warmly welcomed by Inge Wolf. She is the founder of the Holocaust Center. And so the next week we came as a group, but I felt I had to do something personally for them, but also for me. It's what I say, education is the answer, but having a life story that solidates, the education pin of it is, yeah. Like when we had school children coming, and you could tell on their body behavior, like, I'd rather not be here.
Yeah, because it's history, something that happened a long time ago. Yeah.
And so, like, they were in an area in the Holocaust Center where the girls were sitting down, like, well, what am I doing really here? And that is the one I approached, and I said, I've got something I'd like to show you. And I got my pictures out and briefly told them the story, and you could see the eyes lifting up. And the same with the boys. Like when boys were there is a letter there from an English soldier who was one of the liberators of one of the concentration camps, and he wrote a letter to his mother. You will see it today. And so, for real, and I said to you, I think this is so good to read. All right, you have a read, and I come back to you. And then I said, would you like to have a copy of that letter? Yes, please. I wanted them to go home with something in their hands or in their hearts. You say, the connection, there is always a connection, and every child has got a different connection you can connect with, I think, and you have to find that connection.
Yeah. So they take the piece of paper home, they take the story home. Yeah. What else do you hope they take with them in their heart? To know for something that they can apply in their life, or to, as you say, stand up for themselves or for someone else? What do you hope they take away in that?
That they get courage at the heart when they see something done wrong, to stand up, no matter if they are the only one. And quite often, you are not the only one. You think you are the only one, and you would be probably surprised when you stand up who might do the same, because waiting for that one to stand up.